Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my guest is Kim Larson. Kim, you want to give everybody a bit of an intro to yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm a real estate investor for quite a number of years now. Started when I bought my first place at 20.
That's incredible. Honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a smart move for sure. That's I am where I am because I did that young and stuff. But I live in the Okanagan, BC, Kelowna and Penticton, and I own a construction company here, design, build, architecture, and I do a bit of land development as well.
I want to start this podcast off by welcoming everyone to come down September 14th, 2024 to the Canadian Investing in the U.S. conference. It's being held at the Doubletree Hilton near the Toronto airport. We're giving away lots of free stuff. It includes a free lunch. You can find tickets at a CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/conference. And I hope to meet everybody there. Anyway, back to the show. Wow. So the reason we got talking about this, because I was posting, I had basically a phishing post on my Facebook group saying, hey, where's everyone investing? And you mentioned you're investing in Mexico and California. So how do you go from, investing in the Okanagan, and what drew you down to those other markets?
Real estate in Canada has always been super good for me. I've had a lot of success in it, and buying, selling, holding properties, and lots of different strategies and stuff. But it's basically lifestyle investing for me. Yeah. So I decided to buy my first place in California as a vacation home for me, as also as a rental property. Mm-hmm. In my late 30s, I was starting to think about retirement and Freedom 45 and where I wanted to kind of spend my winters, and warm places were always came top to mind and stuff. So I started going on trips every year to kind of explore different islands, Caribbean, different places, Costa Rica, Bahamas, everywhere. Yeah. And just to find out which place I kind of felt like would end up being my home for retirement and stuff, or even part-time. And I found that once I got there, I was still fairly young. Once I got there, I was like, okay, these are beautiful. This is amazing. I really like it here, but it's quiet. And once you've seen it, it's kind of like, okay, well, now what? So I kind of started to switch gears a little bit, and then COVID hit. So that was another factor behind my thought rationale, was be able to drive somewhere. Right. And I went to college in California. That's where I got my degree in architecture. And so I fell in love with South Orange County back then. It was a lifestyle investing decision for me. I decided at that point, I still get the palm trees and the heat. Still can drive from BC pretty easy. It's easy to get to California from BC. You're not having to fly across to Toronto and then fly down and stuff. Right. And then also that there's action, there's so much to do. I bought a place in Huntington Beach, and there's lots to do right there in Newport, Laguna, but it's also 40 minutes from LA, and sporting events and concerts and everything. So I found for me at this stage of my life where I still like to do a lot of things, that was the right decision for me. The Freedom 45 plan, I kind of had in my mind, and this is in my mid 30s, that I have to save up X amount of dollars to be able to buy something, because there was I figured that cash was the only way to do this, that there wasn't financing for options and stuff back then. Started to do some research. Again, this is during COVID, so we're all sitting at home doing nothing. So I turned into a research. I always have been because of real estate, but basically looked into every possibility and just researched everything about investing in the States. And then at that time, I also found out that you could do cross-border banking, and they were giving mortgages to Canadians who are buying their vacation home or rental property. So I started going down that path and also researching the, tax implications and getting lawyers and accountants that understand both sides of the border, because I have a company here. So is it smart to kind of tie them together? Or is it better to do it personally? The States being a little bit of a litigious place sometimes, we have to protect ourselves. I mean, it doesn't be everywhere like that, but so what's the best structure for the actual purchase? Is it going to be in my name? Is it going to be, so when I started researching like LPs and LLCs and stuff. And so, I mean, whoever is thinking about investing in the States, you got to look at your own situation and talk to professionals that understand where you're at in Canada and what your plans are for the States or wherever as well, because the structure can change based on that.
Yeah.
I ended up opening up an LP, not an LLC, because double taxation avoidance. Some people know that, some people don't, and some people still go with an LLC for other reasons. And that might be different based on their situation and stuff, but that's what worked out for me, because LP is recognized in Canada as well, right? And that's actually a piece of information I got from this podcast back in like 2021. So then I started going down that road to research that a little bit more to make sure I got the right structure and stuff. And so that Freedom 45 plan became very possible because I was able to mortgage a portion of this, so I didn't have to buy this place out with outright cash. And all of my, not all of it, but the good chunk of my equity and net worth and stuff is in property. So what kind of financing did you use? Because you were mentioning cross-border, a banking that you're talking about, so might be something you have to personally qualify, is where my mind is going. Yeah, so it was at the time when I was going down this road, it was RBC.
Yep.
They had like the cross-border mortgages for Canadians buying property in the States. And I got, this is all before you could even travel. This is during the height of COVID and stuff. So I got all of these like things completed so that when I was able to get down there, everything was already ready to go.
Nice.
So getting US bank accounts. Anyways, I got pre-approved for a mortgage through RBC for, I think they said I could purchase up to 850 grand, and at a 3.65% rate, which was great really for the States. At the time for us, it was, we were in the 2% range.
Really good.
really, really good. So I went down that road.
That was probably a 30 term, 30 am.
You could do 30s. These were like 5, 7, and 10 arm.
Okay, arms, yep.
Yeah. But they did have options for 30 years and stuff too. So they actually treated us basically because, we have credit in Canada, basically, that we're just as good as anyone else in the States. And it was a really good program that I ventured into. And you were talking about being expensive there, and yes, it is, but because of being able to mortgage, I didn't have to come up with all the cash. I also decided that, prior to that age, if I just got into the market, put my foot on the ladder down there, then I could always upgrade down the road and make a move when I needed to later on. So this is also during like the peak of the boom. So trying to buy a place from afar, I found a real estate agent as through a recommendation. And I was able to make one trip finally in 2021 for my first trip to go down and look at places, and didn't find anything on that trip, but my agent was awesome. And every time something came up, that was the good thing about doing a trip. So if anyone's looking in that area, definitely you can research as much as you want and kind of pinpoint certain areas that you might be interested in. Then you get there and it becomes super clear about which ones are narrowed it down to the final 2 location kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's key. But finding an agent that's willing to help you through that process and being afar, because you can't just jump down on a plane all the time to go look at something. So he would FaceTime me soon as something would come up, it'd be 10 o'clock at night. He'd be FaceTiming me from the property and stuff. And he was awesome. So yeah, finding the right agent obviously is key.
I have a question about your financing.
Yeah.
So, you're using RBC to do the financing, and so it's usually, from my experiences with them, they'll count your Canadian properties, whether you want to count it with you or against you. So a lot of times they will say you're allowed to have this many properties, and I know that you have like a portfolio in Canada as well. Are your Canadian properties then in corps or something in order so that they wouldn't hurt you on the qualification? Because a lot of times they'll only let you have like 5 properties.
Yeah.
Or properties. It changes all the time.
Yeah.
Is that an issue with them?
It wasn't at the time that I remember anyways. Like I don't recall that coming up as an issue. I was in the middle of kind of moving some stuff around too, and buying, selling. Like it was the peak, the boom. So I was making moves at the time too. So I do have, or at the time I had, I think 3 in my holding company, and then I had 2 more into Alberta Corps because they were project related for land development and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, those were a sidebar, but the other, like, I don't remember how many I had at the time, but handful were owned by me personally, and it didn't they were all like cash flowing properties though. So in this case, maybe it was helping.
Yeah.
But they were also, it was a lot to do with my primary residence. So my personal residence is a lakefront house that I built as a builder and developer and whatever. And so like the actual there is humongous. So I think they found a lot of protection just based on my net worth in there. And
that makes
house
sense, right?
Yeah, so they didn't hesitate.
Because if you use like banks like RBC, they do have like recourse in both countries compared to some of the American banks. They don't have any precedent or anything in Canada across the border to do anything.
Yeah. So I'll talk to you just about this financing stuff, because this is something that people might not realize or, go through. Overall, the process went fairly smooth, but there were things that happened.
Yeah.
So it started out with RBC. So here's where we go. At the time, like I said, it's a boom. So this was like the 7th offer I put in on property and lost out on a bunch. I finally got the one, and it was the best one anyways. I'm happy about it, but I had to put in over asking. And RBC at the time, they were only offering like minimum 45 to 60 day closing terms that they could fund the project. And so that's just not going to fly in a hot market where people are doing all cash and 14-day close and stuff like that. So I had to then, my real estate agent put me in touch with a local lender, American based, that could do the bridge financing for me until RBC could then take it out. And they were amazing. But again, and we got like a 1-year term just in case it took a while or whatever. But, the rate went from my plan 3.65 to like 9% or something like that.
But it was for a short period of time.
Yeah, it didn't really matter if it's short period. It was more worth it to get the property, and then we could figure that part out later. And so we did that.
Was there a lot of closing costs with doing the bridge or gap funding?
Yeah, I basically had to pay double. I had to pay and then to refinance later.
Yeah.
Not maybe double, but there was definitely, I paid twice for the whole process and stuff, escrow fees and all that. And the tricky part about it was that I did the 14-day close, but I think the only reason why it succeeded like that was because of everything that I put in place in advance. Like if I didn't do that 6 months of research and setting up US bank accounts and getting my corp established and finding that accountant, that lawyer and all that, there wouldn't have been time to do any of that in 14 days. Like,
too fast.
As a real estate investor, when you're closing on a property or when you're, getting through that due diligence phase and stuff, like it's a lot where you have to provide a lot of information. We're even used to that because you do it over and over again. But even if you have everything lined up, there's still, all of a sudden it was, you need to give us a letter of reference from 2 Americans that you know really, really well.
Really?
Yeah. So I had to call people, you know, that were in business groups that I was a part of and stuff, and they were happy to do it. But it's like, you know, they're busy, so you have to reach out, and then they have to spend the time to write a letter, and then I'll get all that back and forth. And so that was something I didn't expect, was the letter reference. And then they asked for just, you know, a few more pieces of information that we don't usually have in our package ready for banking.
Right. Yeah.
So lots of last minute things. Then they told me I could, so I live just an hour north of the border. They told me that I could sign in front of a lawyer here, and then we would just courier the documents, so I didn't have to go to California at the time. And then, so the escrow process, that some Canadians don't even know this, is even the research I did, I didn't really realize how this works. But you know how we always have a subject removal period. You know, you put those dates in, and then you close after that with whatever date that you come up with. Like, escrow and your closing dates kind of run concurrently. So while you're going through that process towards your closing date, you don't even have a closing date, but you go through the escrow period, and then you're supposed to close after that. It happens at the same time. So that's why things fall out of escrow if something happens during that time, right? So that was super fast. It was like 12 days. I had 12-day contingency to like go through all my stuff, and then I was supposed to close in 14. Sounds
very stressful.
Oh yeah, it's just, I mean, it's all part of the game. It's probably why some of us are investors, because we like that kind of challenge and the stress a little bit. It's fun. It's part of it. And but then it was last minute, you know, I'm having an appointment to sign with a lawyer, and then all of a sudden that wasn't good enough. I had to go to the States and go sign there. And again, this is during COVID, when you're doing the testing 72 hours before. And so like you have to book your test and then go and then wait for your results, and then you can go and whatever. And this is kind of early stages before they were a bit quicker. So it kind of delayed the process, because all of a sudden now I had to drive to the States, and across from Asturias border, there's like little towns. Like there's one lawyer that deals with all little towns around there. So I had to track them down and sign in front of them. They were amazing too, but just all these last minute things that it ended up delaying our closing about 5 or 6 days, I think.
Not too bad.
No, it's not too bad, but I can imagine
it's a different mentality the Canadians and Americans have. The Americans are like, oh, this is the closing date, and we'll close sometime around there. And in Canada, it's like, we close on this date, or someone's getting sued because there's moving trucks and stuff going on, because we need to live somewhere. And, you know, whereas they're like, I've had people like, oh, we just about push the closing 2 weeks. I'm like, 2 weeks. And I was just like, but where do you live in the meantime? Where's all your stuff? Like, I don't know how they do it.
I don't either. It's like they find a place beforehand. That's why when half the time you go in to look at places, they're empty and they've already moved on. Yeah. I'm not sure. So I was stressed about that point. I was like, oh, I feel so bad for the sellers. Like, tell them I'm so sorry. They didn't care. Yeah. That's one difference that's actually probably good for us that we don't have to deal with. But then anyways, back to the financing part is, so we close on it. Everything is fine. I think I got it on December 14th, 21. And then I flew down there December 27th, 21, just after Christmas for the first time, and I had never seen it. Yeah. So I bought it at sight unseen. And
so was it just sitting empty that whole time?
It was, yeah. Like we bought a couple pieces, or they threw in a couple pieces of furniture for us to start it, which was great. But I had ordered everything in that time, so it was going to arrive on the 27th when we get there, and so we can set it up, because I plan to. Yes, this is my vacation house, but you know, I was going to rent it when I'm not using it, so I set it up for a short-term rental. But in South Orange County, it's minimum 30 days. Like you're not allowed to do short-term rentals.
You do midterms, yeah,
which is better, I think. I knew that before going there. Like I did all that research in advance and stuff, and it's been incredible. I put in I set up, because I have Airbnbs here too, but I set up an ad before I took possession of it, and I had it booked within 2 days for the day that after I left setting it up. And if I don't block it, like, it's booked. If I don't block it for myself to go there, it's booked throughout the year.
That's good.
So it's been a little lucrative little business. It's been an amazing place for me to spend my time. It's blocked from the beach and blocked from downtown Main Street, Huntington Beach.
Do you manage it yourself, or do you have someone else do the
I manage it myself. Yeah. It's amazing. And especially with 30 days, when you don't have to worry about the turnover, every
It's
3,
not as
4,
much,
5.
yeah.
Yeah, it's way less to deal with. Everyone that's coming there are usually coming there for some sort of work, like traveling nurses or professionals that, during COVID, it changed the way people work, and they can work from anywhere. So they go and, pop around, go to different places and stuff that are nice. And LA people who want a beach house for the summer, they book or they rent houses at the beach and then go back and forth between LA and the beach and stuff. So
that's nice.
Yeah, it's been great. And but the finance, so after I got this first renter in there, he's going in there for 3 months. I'm like, oh, I better book it for May, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get back in there again. So that's kind of been the mentality ever since. But so as soon as the storm finished of getting it all closed and stuff, I'm like, I better get on to RBC to say I found my place and now you need to cash me out.
Right.
And so that, I think that was in February or so, and started that. And so the guy I was dealing with before, he's like, okay, well, now we need this information again. It has to be 90 days current and all that. So we start down that road again. In the meantime, interest rates are going up. And I was so busy with my construction business and stuff. Like, it's not like I was hounding RBC every day to say, okay, where's my approval? When can we get this financed out and stuff? It was more like I'd send them a little bit.
Have urgency. You already had a mortgage on it.
Yeah. So I just I'd send him the information. Then a week later, he'd come back. A week later, kind of. So it was a little bit slow moving. Then by the time I think summer came around, and this is 100% my fault for not going after it.
Yeah.
Just, I had so much on the go. That by then, interest rates were she's like, I can't offer you that anymore. It's now 5.5 was the spring. And then all of a sudden it was 7 by end of summer or something like that.
Oh.
And then he's like, yeah, with this interest rate, I can't qualify you anymore. I'm like,
no.
Are you kidding me? So this actually took because I had until December 14th to refinance it. By the time he actually got back to me, it was November, saying that they weren't going to give me the refi mortgage because they were slowing down their cross-border banking stuff. I think they were making changes inside too. And yeah, interest rate changes big time from 3.65 to 8% or whatever they were talking about, wherever it was at that point. So that last few weeks before my 1-year mortgage was up, I had to go shopping for a mortgage in the States again. So I got a different one. I ended up reaching out to a bunch of options and talking to other real estate investors who had done the same thing, and just got some recommendations, and ended up dealing with a company that was great. And it's I think it's still around an 8% mortgage, but they're going to be coming down and stuff this year. Then I'm going to refinance it again. But it definitely changed, my cash flow on the property, because it changed the payment a lot more. But I still get to have a house basically in the States for free that's already gone up in value a lot. And so I'm getting my lifestyle freedom day before 45. I started that now, and by the time I'm 45, it will be paid off and whatnot. So, and then I plan to upgrade and get a waterfront property down there. But right now it's a condo that is awesome.
That's okay. I love condos, especially it's when you're on vacation and everything else. Got a question for you. So you did all this. If you were going to do this again, or even things you learned, any tips or tricks you found, or things you would have done differently, or anything like that, just for anyone who's listening and wants to do the exact same sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the best thing I could have ever done was research the hell out of it before I even went down shopping for anything. I knew exactly what needed to happen. I mean, there are a few still surprises in there, but if I didn't do that in advance, it would have been way more surprised, trying to rush through this process and stuff. So even if you don't like doing it, like it's imperative that you do set yourself up for success and stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
spend that little bit of time to make sure you do it right, so you're not trying to scramble later.
Well, you setting up the bank accounts, setting up all your stuff ahead of time, but it made it so you can move faster. I have done a transaction where I found the property on a Wednesday and closed on a Monday, but that was with cash and and I had structure set up. Or if you didn't, you can always fumble your way through it. I have done that same sort of transaction and done it in had to close it in my personal name and then move it into the mortgage 2 weeks later, because the mortgage can't move that fast, or the corporation isn't set up and I need to quit claim deed it into the corporation because it wasn't set up yet.
I did the exact same thing. I quit claim deeded the place from my personal name into my USLP a year later, I think. So
well, in most cases, you're going to protect yourself with insurance. It is still you want to have it in an LP before you sell it as a Canadian. You don't want that FERPTA withholding tax. But otherwise, ideally you're going to get I usually put $1 million of liability on a property so that you're hey, if things don't go, somebody sues me over something stupid, at least I'm covered for that, right?
Yeah, you go there first for sure.
You go there first. They have to get past that $1 million. So you got to be pretty negligent.
Definitely. For sure. It's the protection against, the ones that think that they just blow everything so far out of proportion that has nothing to do with, an issue whatsoever. There's certain types like that that's going to protect you. And, I have quite a few in my personal name that I just don't want them to go anywhere. I want to protect that stuff. So, and it's the taxation thing too. So, that is key. So, doing all the research you can and make sure that you talk to your local lawyers and accountants and your team and stuff here, as well as whoever you're going to bring in for your new ones that can do both sides. Or that I think is the most important part. And always have a contingency, because things change. That mortgage thing changed for me. So, I mean, it affected it financially for sure. It's just, it doesn't cash flow as much as it would. And I needed to come up with more cash. I had to refinance it twice to get through this stage and stuff. And so there's, 10, 15 grand here and there. I think
we both come from a background of solving problems. I think some people, they have this and they panic, but if you get yourself in the mentality that you're just always solving something, because there's always going to be something, right? If you think it's going to be perfectly smooth, even buying real estate in Canada, you're taking it way too safe.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, I think, that just comes with me or what I do. To owning a construction company, if you don't know how to solve problems, you're not going to make it very far. People never call me with good news. They call me because there's a problem with some sort. So it's part of the game. But if you can handle stress, that helps.
For sure. Kim, if people wanted to get a hold of you, they wanted to, you find out any of those contacts that you mentioned, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, anything. If you're Keyspire, I'm on Keyspire Inner Circle and the Masterminds group too. I'm on Facebook, Kim Larson, and I'm in the Okanagan, Kelowna, BC, or you can email me at kim@allelements.ca.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the story. Thanks for sharing your story and coming on the show. I honestly, my favorite episodes are the ones with stories. You have to hear how it all went and all the issues that come. And that's honestly what it is about. It's about to go as far as you can go, solving problems. And then I plug my own podcast or my own coaching, but the same thing. And like some people, if you want hands with that, hire a coach. Hold your hand for the whole thing.
Absolutely. And same with this podcast. And I would say to people, and part of that research and that advanced training and stuff that you're doing, listen to anything that's related to what you want to be doing. So I found your podcast at the time. I'm like, hey, I'm going to invest in the States. And so there you were. And I started listening to yours and stuff. The same great stories when there's people that have had experience and stuff. It just makes you learn a lot more. So that's my other tip, is make sure you listen, get a coach, or go listen to stuff that's going to be helpful.
Yeah. You can always, like I always say, you can do it the long way. You can listen to a lot of podcasts, you can hire a coach and do it the fast way.
Yeah, true.
The kind of time you got, like if you're a busy professional, sometimes it doesn't work. I used to have a job where I drove around in a truck. That was a perfect time to listen to podcasts, right? So anyway, we're going on side tangent anyway. Kim, awesome content, awesome show. I think a lot of people take a lot away from this, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, of course. Feel free to reach out to me if anybody has any questions. I'm always happy to help.
That was a nice video. Bye.